So they're making more than a typical FBI agent is.
They're making more than me. Oh my God.
Right.
So
So we're up to 4 robberies at this time, right?
yeah.
So where do you guys go with I mean, you obviously you know that they're getting obviously they're honing their craft, they're getting better at this, but what's your guys' response to this?
Well, see, that's interesting because we thought, well, we knew there were new players in town. Okay, and we could establish it was like August, September, October area. That they had started. So we thought, hey, you know what? Though the way these guys are operating, they had, everybody kept saying, hey, that they were tall. I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but I'll use the word buff. They were fit, you know, tall, and they had like a military bearing to them. Okay, that's one of the things that came through, in a lot of in a lot of interviews, and we said, oh, you know what? Maybe we've got some players out of Homestead Air Force Base, because there is a military base down there, and there is a Marine detachment down there. Plus there's also a lot of National Guard, activity in Miami, and then we have Coast Guard. So I mean, we figured, hey, you know what? These guys are probably either recently. Uh, they military guys have just finished their enlistment, and they're they're trying to find a way to supplement their income or something like that. So we thought we might actually be dealing with recently retired or current active duty military guys, or back in the day. That's back before this big craze started. Preppers, survivalists, or whatever the heck they call themselves now. That was the beginning of that craze back then. Like prepping, and survivalist.
Yeah, it's funny you were mentioning that, Ed, because the 80s, it's still we're not that far away from Vietnam. We're less than 10 years away. A lot of people, like I said, not only Air Force, but you got Army, you've got Navy, you've got a lot of people, Marines, a lot of people, former military people. And so, yeah, what was it about? You said, I'm surprised though, even for military people, you thought their shooting might have been just a little bit better if they were military trained.
Well, you know what though? It's interesting you say that because when we post incident, um, I mean, I was I had the easy part. I was in intensive care for 2 weeks. So I didn't have any investigative duties. So but post incident, they found out that these guys would go out to the Everglades almost every week and practice and practice and practice. And I know it might be getting a little bit ahead of the story, but after the shooting happened, there was an investigation. They went to their homes, and then they talked to their wives and girlfriends, and they found a receipt. I think it was well, I forget whose home it was, but they found a receipt for the purchase of 5,000 rounds of 223 ammo.
Dang.
Okay. And they asked the girlfriends, the FBI and Metro Dade asked the girlfriends, where's the ammo? And they said, oh, they shot it up.
That's a lot of rounds.
They said, what? They said, yeah, they used to practice a lot. They used to go shooting a lot. Okay. So I asked people, I said, hey, how many of you guys and ladies shoot 5,000 rounds of ammo a year in practice? I mean, I'm a firearms instructor, okay, or used to be, and I'm thinking, man, I don't know whether as an instructor, I fired 5,000 rounds of ammo, in a year. I mean, pretty close probably, but I mean, that's a lot of ammo, I mean, but they had fired it in the previous 2 weeks.
Man, well, either they just shooting it up. But you were talking about though, I mean, you started formulating these theories, right? So how did these theories translate into next actions? I mean, you guys are putting a plan. At some point, you got to be figuring it. It seems like Fridays are a popular day for these guys to do stuff. They are getting settled into a couple routines that might make them a little predictable.
Correct. Yeah. Right. That's a good point. Like it's called intuitive policing. It's like, hey, you take all the information, you sift through it, and then you try to come up with a some sort of a pattern, and the pattern that Gordon McNeil, the supervisor, and Ben Grogan, the case agent on these bank robberies, had come up with the fact that, hey, at least 50% of the robberies all happened on Friday.
Hmm.
Okay, the balance of the other robberies happened on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Okay, so Fridays was for us old timers, we know what Payday Friday is. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
remember the old, hey, it's Payday Friday,
Yes,
hooray,
sir.
let's go.
A good day.
You would actually get a paper check handed to you or mailed to you. That's before direct deposit. So that's what Payday Friday was all about. So they always hit on Fridays. So not always, but 50% of the time or more they hit on Fridays. So there is something to say about Payday Friday. So and then the frequency. They the last robbery we described, they got $41,000. The next robbery that happened was on January the 10th at the Barnett Bank, and they got $54,000 on that robbery because they hit the armored truck itself, not the bank. So again, they go in. The armored truck's making a delivery at the Barnett Bank. The bank courier didn't even get a chance to react. Okay, he opens the door. He stepped out, turns around, reaches inside to grab the money bags, the actual money duffels.
Yeah.
And before he knows it, he is blasted from behind with a shotgun in the legs. Okay, they've swept his feet out from under them. They didn't even give him a warning, no freeze, no boo or nothing, just boom. He's down. Two men, camouflage clothing, hoods, gloves, and so on and so forth. They walk up behind him and they grab two money bags. And the individual with the assault rifle, shoots the guard in the back twice with a .223 caliber rifle. Now that's pretty cold blooded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean it's like, hey, the guy's already down with a shotgun hit to his legs. What threat is he really? Think about it. But he pops him twice in the back. And when I lecture at different conferences and so on and so forth, I talk about time and chance. Luck. People hate the word luck. I mean, I'm not a big fan of it, but I kind of have to call it what it is. And then I started going biblical on people. I said time and chance. That's the Bible's way of saying luck. Time and chance. Okay, this guy is shot in the legs and he's shot twice in the back with the .223 caliber round. Okay, now what happened to the other guard at the Winn-Dixie? He was shot in the legs with a shotgun. Okay, he went down, and after a long, lingering recovery and so on and so forth, he died a year later. Okay, time and chance. This guard is shot through the legs and 2 rounds through the back. He survived.
Wow.
After getting shot twice in the back at close range with an assault rifle, he survives. You go, man, that's pretty good. I don't know whether that's luck or whether he's just, I don't know what the answer is. But
wasn't his day
anyway,
to die.
so luckily the guard survived, but the bad guys got away with $54,000. Okay, so that is when we discussed eyewitnesses. An eyewitness saw what happened, and he is in the parking lot, and he sees these guys jump in a gold-colored car. They speed away, and he follows them. He followed them at a distance, and they pull into some restaurant like 2 or 3 blocks away. Park the car, sees them, grab the money bags, jump into a white pickup truck, and escape. Okay, so he thought about following them, and he started to follow them, but I think one of them looked at him and kind of like gave him the evil eye and goes, maybe I better not, so he's the one that called the cops, and that's when we recovered Emilio Brielle's car. There was a gold-colored Monte Carlo, so.
Yeah, something we should talk about that too, jumping ahead just a little bit, but this is how cold-blooded these guys were, right? Because Emilio Bria's skeletized remains were found later. They had killed him for his car, right?
Correct. They when he disappeared October 4th, they found his remains on March 1st, like 2 months after this robbery. Okay, and they didn't know who he was at the time, but based on dental and I think they may have found some other stuff that identified him as being the Brielle kid, because they took his wallet, they took his guns and stuff. He was out target shooting, and he was identified. And when they found him, he had a bullet hole in his forehead. Just point blank, boom, one shot, down. So pretty cold blooded. Steal, kill somebody for their car like that.
Yeah.
So,
Damn.
but so we recovered the car. They got a good hit on the on the bank, 54,000. I mean, shoot, even I could live on 54 a month,
Yeah. Yeah.
on my government retirement,
Yes, sir.
So things kind of, they kind of lay low, until March. Obviously they're missing a car, and then on God, it was March the 12th, I believe. They Jose Colazo, he's out target practicing at almost the identical same spot that Emilio Brielle had been, and he's out there target practicing. And when he's out there, he notices a white pickup truck pull into the same area he's target practicing in, and he kind of acknowledges them, say, "Hey, I'm shooting in this direction." They acknowledge back, saying, "Okay, we're going to shoot in that same direction," that type of stuff. And he said, excuse me, about 20 minutes later, he feels something and kind of senses something behind him, and he turns around and he sees these two white guys behind him. One's carrying an assault rifle and the other one's carrying a revolver. And they just walked right up to him and say, "Hey, give us your wallet, your guns, your car keys, and all the other stuff." So, and he said they asked him a peculiar question. They asked him, "Are you a cop?" And he said, "What? What are you?" "No, I'm not a cop." "Why?" "Never mind." And I think they were asking him if he was a cop because cops being cops, they're looking for a place to practice, and that was a very popular place to go shooting. And a lot of cops went out there. So I don't think they wanted to carjack a cop, because a missing cop is, you'll know.
That's an all hands on deck thing, man. You're going to get the
exactly,
call down the
exactly
thunder.
right. So when he said no, he's not a cop, that they felt a little easier, I suppose. That's just speculation on my part, but he said no. So anyway, so they go through this song and dance. This little ballet. It's like, "Hey, walk over to that lake," and Colazo says, "Why?" He said, "Just shut up and walk to the lake." And he grabs him and sticks a gun in his back and says, kind of like, again, nudges of encouragement, "Walk over to the lake." And Colazo thought, "Hey, you know what? This is a bad thing. They're walking me over to the lake for a reason. It's we're not going skinny dipping here." So he said, "Hey, you know what? They're going to kill me." And he said, I got nothing to lose. So I tell people, I say, "Hey, Colazo was very lucky. He's not a trained professional. He's never. I'm sure he'd seen the move that we're as cops are taught. Somebody sticks a gun in your back. You sweep, you turn and sweep the gun off your mass, your center mass. And try to get the gun. He must have seen that in a movie, probably Bruce Lee kung fu movie or something like that. Because he did that. He actually turned and swept the gun off him, and he got his hands on the gun, and the robber and Colazo were fighting over the gun, and the gun goes off, bam, bam, bam. Somewhere during the course of the struggle, there was a struggle for the gun, and he was shot 3 times. One round went through his hand, another round went through his shoulder, right shoulder, and one round went through his face, the right part of his face. And I mentioned time and chance before. It's like, I tell, when I lecture, I tell people, I say, hey, how many of you guys in this classroom want to get shot in the face? And of course, nobody wants to get shot in the face. But here we are. Collazo was shot in the face, and he was so lucky, and I can't show you over this audio recording, but when I teach, I actually have a slide, showing the trajectory of the round when it went through his face, and it went through his right cheek, over his the right part of his jaw, and it came out the back of his ear. It's like, wow, talk about a lucky shot. I mean,
Nobody wants to get shot in the face. If you're going to get shot, I mean, there's a lot of empty space through there. You're not at least hitting the spinal cord or the brain.
Exactly. Wow. Right. That's what I say. Time and chance. It was just one of those lucky shots. It's like, 99 times out of 100, somebody shoots you in the face, you're probably going to go down hard. But this time, I mean, luck was on his side, So, I mean, don't get me. I tell people, I said, don't get me wrong. Don't go home and try it. And try this at home. Don't do it.
Yeah, no.
Don't. But I mean, if you're going to get shot, that's probably the best way to get shot, because he survived. Okay, and according to he was interviewed by Ben Grogan and Steve Warner. He said, "Hey, man, it was painful." So, but the good part is there's pain. Okay, pain's nature's way of telling you you're still around, you're still alive. So
what I thought was, yeah, go ahead. But the interesting part too is, and you'll get to it, right? I don't know if you need to tell me, they have some fascination for it. Because we're going to talk about one of the reasons they shot him, why it was to get his vehicle. They needed a new vehicle because the gold Monte Carlo had been seized.
Correct, right. And again, it's like you don't have to kill people to steal their car. I mean, it's like, there's other ways to get cars. But it's certainly an option. I mean, that's on the high end option scale. But I mean, people do shoot other people for their cars. But anyway, Collazo was very lucky. He survived. He became our first live witness. Okay, that's how we found. That's how we found that the shooters were white males. They were about 6'2", well built, military bearing. They were driving a white pickup truck. He gave a great description of the truck, and and he gave us a composite. He gave Metro Dade PD, the old Exo sketch, police sketch, Mr. Potato Head sketch, So, I mean, actually, it was pretty good, really. The composite, when we had their driver's license photos, they were pretty good like this. So that happened on the 12th, and March 12th, and then about 6-7 days later, there was a robbery at the Barnett Bank again. And it just happened to have a U.S. Customs officer off duty going to the Barnett Bank to cash a check. And the customs officer was just getting ready to go into the bank when he sees two male individuals running out of the bank at port arms. They were both carrying long weapons, and he stops and he's shocked by it. They were wearing, hoods and gloves and stuff. They jump into a black car, and when they backed out of the parking space in the bank parking lot, they actually backed the rear end of the car towards his car, and he got the tag. He read the tag, he wrote it down. He verified it was Jose Collazo's car. Okay, and we kind of concluded that Collazo was shot in the same place that Brielle was shot. So we figured that would probably come up, and sure enough, a week later that comes up. Now that was the end of the robberies that we can attribute to them. Okay, now that was on the March 18th. Okay, now on April 10, Gordon McNeil, supervisor, and Ben Grogan, case agent, happened to be at Firearms. Okay, that day. That was a Thursday. And they had kicked the case around. And I told you about intuitive policing, like, hey, you put facts together. And Gordon McNeil was talking to Ben and said, "Hey Ben, how about let's run a surveillance tomorrow on your two guys." And I know the story because Gordon McNeil related it to us after the fact, kind of like reminiscing and stuff. He said they kicked it around, and Ben asked him a question. He says, "Why? What's going on, Gordon? What do you think?" He said, "Well, I got a hunch, Ben." He said the last time they hit was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They only got $8,000 in cash. He said, and tomorrow's Friday. He said, I think they're due because they only got $8,000, So he said, I think they're due. And I think tomorrow would be a good day to start a surveillance, And that is exactly how the surveillance was initiated, because we've gotten a lot of flack over the years, especially in the years immediately after the shooting, saying, hey, you guys were, should have been better prepared. You had a tip, you had an informant, you had a tip, something happened that you guys knew to be out there. And nope. We didn't have a tip.
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to say, you guys you've got some hunches about military training or stuff, but at this point in all of your investigations, do you have any clue? Are these guys' name in your system anywhere?
Nope, nothing. Up until Jose Collazo became the witness, we didn't even know. Nobody could tell us, with any definite, that they were white, they were black, or were Hispanic. We had nothing. They were phantoms. They really were phantoms. I mean, they covered themselves pretty good. Hoods, gloves, and granted, a hood isn't 100%. Especially around the eye sockets or around your mouth. You always have some space. Where you can tell somebody, hey, he's light skin or he's brown skin or black skin. Okay, but when you're a bank teller and someone's got a shotgun in your face, you don't see. All you see is a shotgun.
Well, a couple of the bank robberies I worked, they might have pointed a pea shooter at him, and they would have said, "It's a fucking howitzer." The guy had a howitzer in here.
Yeah, exactly. Stress does that to people. So, but Collazo was a great witness. So we that was the first time we had a definitive answer on whether they were black, white, or Hispanic. So, but anyway, so that's how the surveillance started. It's like, hey. Gordon said, I got a hunch. And that was it, And, we talked about weapons before. People said, well, you should have been better prepared, yada, 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 so on and so forth. The only guys that could carry exotic weapons, and by exotic weapons, I mean like the pistols, the high-capacity pistols, the M16s, and the MP5 submachine guns were SWAT-trained agents. Okay, the rest of us mortal agents had to carry standard issued weapons. Okay, which is 38 caliber revolvers or 357 Magnums, and or Remington 12 gauge shotguns. That was it. That's all we were authorized to carry.
Now, did some of the agents though have 9mm? Were you guys starting to transition, or did they have access to 9s?
Right, the SWAT guys had the 9s. We had at the time we had 5 SWAT guys assigned to our squad, and all 5 SWAT guys were on surveillance that day. Okay, unfortunately, they were all spread out over a 5-mile area. Ben Grogan and Jerry Dove and Ron Reisner were the 3 SWAT guys that were on scene during the shooting.
And Murph, just a quick point for you. Do you know about Jerry Dove? He is a West Virginia native and graduated from West WVU in Marshall.
Yep, from law school. In fact, my best friend from high school, who is now a district court judge in West Virginia, went to law school with Jerry. And after that happened, he called me and said, man, I know you're trying to get in DEA, but whatever you do, don't go to South Florida. He tore him up pretty good,
Yeah, yeah.
So, but we're continuing on. So you're starting to. So it's a good day to do a robbery. You guys thinking, hey, let's pull some guys together. So give us the idea now. How do you pull the operational plan together? What does the op plan look like?
Ben and Jerry. Grogan and Gordon talked, and Ben said, "Hey, I'll take all the help I can get, Gordo." So Ben calls the office and he talks to the bank robbery coordinator, Steve Warner, and said, "Hey, pass the word around, see how many guys we can get for a surveillance tomorrow, in South Miami. He said, we're going to run a surveillance on the banks down in the southwest, South Dixie area. And he said, okay, Ben. He said, what's up? What do you know? He said, nah, it's just a hunch. And Gordon wants to run a surveillance tomorrow. He said, try to see how many guys you can get and have them all meet at the Home Depot on South Dixie and 160th Street. So I was in the squad area when that call came in, and he hung up, and Steve said, hey, anybody that can help tomorrow, Ben needs help surveilling, the banks down in Southwest, So we said, okay. So the word gets passed around, and it's always voluntary because, guys have court, guys have other appointments, other, interviews, appointments, or, a sick day or a vacation or whatever. So it's like, hey, just passing the word out, see who can help. And the next day we had 14 agents, 11 from the bank robbery squad, and 3 agents from the Homestead resident agency down there. So a total of 14. So we met at 160th and at the Home Depot, and we all got all pertinent information from Ben. Got the composite photos, got the description of the stolen Monte Carlo, the description of the pickup truck, and we also got a description of a couple of other cars that of some folks that were missing persons, and their car descriptions that may or may not be involved. Just we had more information than we needed. So we made the surveillance assignments. There were 4 major spots where agents were assigned, and every one of those spots had been hit before with a robbery.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that you're saying. It's like the last robbery they did too. They had hit months earlier. It's kind of like part of their flaw in their planning too, right? Was that they're going back and hitting some of the same places they'd done before.
Well, yeah, 136th Street. They hit there's 2 banks there, and they hit each bank once each, even though the banks are like next door to each other. So it's kind of misleading in a way, but it's not. I mean, you go right back to the same address basically. And on the morning of April 11th, that's where Ben Grogan and Jerry Duff picked them up. They picked them up at 136th Street and South Dixie Highway. They went back to that bank location a third time, which is bizarro. I mean, you got to ask yourself, you're going back a third time? It's like, wow. I mean, there's other banks out there, guys. I'm just saying.
Were Jerry and Ben in the same car? Or they have separate cars?
No, Ben and Jerry were in the same car. Yeah, they were partnered up that day. Yeah. So
and based on where they picked them up at, and in relation to where they were eventually headed, how far? Where was it where they picked them up at, and where were they headed to? I mean, how many blocks are we looking at?
Well, see, that's a very good question. And I always, in the spirit of full disclosure, want to tell people up front that I am probably I don't want to sound like an ass, but I'm probably the definitive expert on the shooting.
Well, why wouldn't you be?
You were there.
Yeah, I was, but by the same token, I also
some ass hat writes a Wikipedia article, and all of a sudden he's the fucking expert.
Well, I mean, yeah, some of them are, I guess, but see, in my case, I always put this caveat out there as in full disclosure. The story I'm telling you is about 85% accurate. And I tell people, I said, why do I say 85% or 80% accurate? And I tell them this, because we have 4 dead witnesses. 4 dead witnesses. I said, they did things that we think we can go back and reconstruct what happened and their actions, but we really don't know with 100% certainty that it happened the way we think it happened. So I always put that out there, okay? But this is what I think happened. Well, this is what I know happened, okay? But it's still speculation. At about 9:25, 9:30 in the morning at 136th Street and South Dixie Highway, Ben Grogan, Jerry Dove, Gordon McNeil, Terry Nelson, and Richard Manauzi were at 136th Street. There were 2 banks there. Okay, that's where we had five agents in that area.
And it's all static surveillance, right? Nobody's mobile.
And everybody's sitting in a car, Everybody's just kind of hanging out, spread out, and it's South Florida, so you want to find a shady spot,
Absolutely.
So you don't want to get too hot, So this is what we speculate happened when Ben Grogan and Jerry Dove were watching the bank. Okay, they went up there and they saw a marked unit parked in front of the banks, and Terry Nelson went over there and made contact. Said, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" He said, "Hey, yeah, the bank hired us as extra security. We're going to be here the whole day, as long as the bank, during bank hours, from 9 to 3 or whatever the heck they were. So yeah, we're going to be sitting here." And they were in a marked unit in uniform. Okay, there were 2 guys in the car. So he went back and reported it on the radio. Say, "Hey, there's a marked unit here. I don't think anything's going to happen here. What do you guys want to do?" And Gordon said, "Hey, let's just stick around. Hey, let's hang out and see what happens." So we speculate that somewhere around 9:25, 9:30, the 2 robbers pulled up in the black Monte Carlo up to the bank, did a surveillance around the bank, saw the marked unit, and said, this is not the place. So they started driving away, and they got back on South Dixie Highway and started heading north now. Speculation is that when they did that, Ben and Jerry were far enough away from the scene that all they could see was the top of the black car driving through the parking lot around the bank and then leave the parking lot to head northbound. They could not verify the tag because it was too far away, and then secondly, it was blocked by all the other parked cars in the parking lot. So speculation is that they saw the car, they put their FBI car in gear, and they started following it, trying to catch up. That location was 136th Street. At about 128th Street, that's when Ben Grogan called on the radio and said, "Attention all units, we're behind a black vehicle, 2-door, Florida tag, Florida license NTJ 891," and that was Collazo's car. So it took him from 136th Street all the way up to 128th to catch up with the black car to verify the tag. And it wasn't until he got there that he verified the tag. So that's what we think happened. And you know what? I'm pretty confident that's what happened. But again, it's speculation. Okay, so that's how Ben and Jerry found the Monte Carlo. They came into the parking lot, saw the marked unit in front of the bank, and said, "Nah, this is not the place." So they started driving away, looking for another location. Okay, and the next thing we know, we're on a real quick, short chase, catching up with these guys. So by the time Ben Grogan announced it, he was already past my location. He was north of my location by 2 blocks. Okay, so we jumped on the highway and started heading north, and then we caught up to them. I saw the actual Monte Carlo, in traffic on US 1, and then they turned right on 117th, right on 81st, and then right on 120th, and then they made a left on 82nd Avenue. And then that's when Ben called out and said, "Hey, felony car stop. Let's do it." And then the rest of it is just, one big show, so.
Well, let's talk about that, because they call out the felony car stop. By the time they get ready to do the stop, you guys get ready to do the stop. Who have you got with you now? You've got quite a few cars, quite a few agents.
We had, of course, everybody was alerted. Okay, and don't forget, we were on surveillance. From my location at 128th Street to the southernmost location of the surveillance was about 5 miles. So we had units all the way on the south part of the surveillance, rushing up to help us. When Ben called felony car stop, it was Ben Grogan, Jerry Dove in one car, Mireles and Hanlon in the second car, Richard Manauzi in the third car, and then Gordon McNeil had paralleled and made a U-turn and come back to help us. Okay, so 4 cars, 6 agents. And then when the car chase and the car crashes ended, we had 8 agents on the scene and 2 bank robbers.
I mean, I don't know if you're thinking about things because this gets into the tough part.
No, I'm just waiting, for any clarification
Oh
that you
no,
need.
look, dude, it's your story. So I mean,
I'm looking.
Okay.
I'm looking at a drawing of how the cars were situated at the time.
Right, we ended up there because people say, "Well, no, you know what though? Was it a chase? Was it it was both. It was a slow surveillance turned into a short, quick chase with bumper cars." And then we continued to crash, and then we ended up crashing against the wall, and Manauzi ended up crashing him twice, and then pinned him up against a parked car and a tree, and everything was still at that point. I mean, what was that old saying? The quiet was deafening, the silence was deafening. But I mean, we weren't sitting on our thumbs, because Gordon McNeil jumped out, Ben Grogan jumped out, and they're yelling, "FBI, police, give yourselves up!" And of course, their response was gunfire. So I'm across the street, and I'm had a shotgun. I had a 12-gauge shotgun with double-lock pellets loaded into it. I'm thinking, I'm 50 yards out, man. This double-lock pellet isn't going to cut it at 50 yards, man. Plus, I've got like 3 or 4 or 5 agents out in front of me. It's like I'll be more than likely to hit them than anybody else, So I knew I had to get closer, so I ran across the street. And I saw Gordon McNeil's position, so I veered slightly to the left, that side of the scene, and I went into to reinforce Gordon McNeil on his left side behind the engine block of Richard Manauzi's car. And I tell people, I say, hey, a funny thing happened to me on the way to the gunfight. I didn't make it. So I mean, I'm running. I mean, obviously, it's embedded in my brain. I was running forward 1 second and looking for a threat. I mean, I could see where Gordon McNeil was shooting, but he was shooting into a tinted window of a parked car or a crashed car, and I really couldn't see what was inside, but I knew he was shooting in that general direction. So I'm trying to get to Gordon's position so that I can reinforce him on the left side. And next thing I know, I'm looking up at the blue sky, and I'm thinking, what the hell happened? It's like, what the hell?
Did you feel anything?
Not at all. People say, hey, what's it feel like to get shot? And I look at him and I say, I don't know what it felt like, because it felt nothing.
I know what it feels like after you've been shot, but it's like,
oh, no, exactly. After's a different story. But at the initial gunshot point, nothing. I had no sensation whatsoever.
What were you hit with?
I was hit with the .223 caliber round. I was hit through the left arm, which was in front of my chest.
Now, let's talk about going into the gunfight. I know that there was some body armor used. How were you equipped that day? Were you equipped with, other than like your revolver and your shotgun, do you have body armor on?
Yeah, everybody had body armor, and whether they chose to put it on or not, it was an individual call. I had it, and it was in the back seat. It was too hot. I mean, body armor in South Florida, Plus, then you had to have your raid jacket on, which is, again, suffocating. You got this heavy armor, and then you've got the windbreaker. And I said, nah, forget it. I'll just put on the windbreaker. But I had it.
But in retrospect, though, too, when you were looking at the old state of the body armor, those things wouldn't have stopped a .223.
No way.
Not unless you had a plate in.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have had it on your arm anyway.
No, I would have had it on the arm anyway. So, no, but it's interesting though, because I mean, I get into a very detailed account in my book. It's like, and I can't show the listener, because obviously, you have to have video or a lecture, but you have two floating bones in your forearm, the radial bone and the ulnar bone, and that's how you can rotate your wrist left and right, up and down, so. And luckily for me, the 2 bones in my forearm were perfectly aligned between me and the shooter. Okay. And the round hit both bones. Okay. If the round had only hit one bone, it would not have been enough to stop the round. The round would have kept coming through and hit me in the chest.
So, and as you're holding it up, just to give everybody a visual, you're kind of holding like your left arm across your chest in front of you, right?
Correct. And the reason I put it that way is because as I'm running to help Gordon, I realized, oh shit, I've got the muzzle of the shotgun pointing at his back. So I'm thinking that's not, it goes back to training. I said, oh man, I've got to, I can't do that as officer safety. So I brought the muzzle up slightly, almost to like a military port arms position. Okay. So when I brought it up to port arms, I had, brought my left arm up in front of my chest,
right across your chest like that,
and that's when the round hit me. And I tell people, I say, hey man, if the left arm hadn't been there, it would have been a different story.
Now, are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed, yeah.
Okay, and you shoot right-handed too with the shotgun? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So in that respect, I was pretty lucky. But the round hit me, and it hit the pinky bone, the ulnar bone first, and then it kept coming through, and it hit the radial bone, the thumb side, and it completely pulverized my arm. At the point of impact, it was like a pinprick, and at the exit, which the muscle, the bone mass was enough to deflect the round. Instead of having it go straight across, it deflected the round up. And so as my forearm is flat on the table, it deflected up into the air, straight up. So it took 2 inches of my radial and 2 inches of my ulnar bone out. Poof! It disappeared, along with the flesh and the tissue and tendons, everything else in between, and skin and stuff. So, and it, of course, it shattered. My forearm bones completely. I mean, it was just like.
And I'm going to state the obvious, but I want people need to understand. But at that point, your left arm is out of action. You're basically useless.
It was. Yeah, it was. Total devastation. The doctor. I read a medical report, and I was stunned. The medical report said that I had a hole in my forearm, 3 or 4 inches wide, and about 6 inches long. And I'm thinking, how is that possible?
Holy cow!
Your forearm is only so wide, And then I think, well, tissue is elastic. Okay, so when it exploded, it didn't just explode like dirt. It stretched out, so the hole was way bigger than you would normally think. So, but he said, yeah, you had a hole in your arm about 3 inches wide and 6 inches long. And I'm thinking, geez, thank God all the bone in there didn't get blown out,
Go ahead, Steve.
You're on the ground. How far are you from McNeil's car?
I fell. The actual blood puddle was about 4 feet from the car, from the tire. So I was almost to the point of cover behind the engine block when I took the hit. So when I fell back, my actual forearm was about 4 feet from the car.
And when you fell back, did you? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounded like you said you fell back. Did you lose consciousness? And if so, or were you just stunned, like in shock, or what happened at that point?
No, I didn't lose consciousness, but it's like 1 second the world is kind of semi-normal, and I say semi-normal because I was going into fight or flight. I started losing, getting auditory exclusion. The gunshots sounded like they were muffled, and things were moving in slow motion, even though I was running, for all I was worth, But after I fell back, that's when the world changed. Okay. It was like I was moving through molasses. I was like, it felt lethargic, it's like, and there was no pain, but I'm sure I was moving normal. But my sensation was that I was like moving moving real slow motion, that's my perception. But in reality, I probably wasn't, So, but in other words, the hit actually stunned, and it stunned me mentally and physically. It shot me. Okay, but I didn't lose consciousness, and I still kept looking around. And after I took the hit, I lost all hearing. Total hearing loss. I had a ringing sound in my ears. Just like a nonstop going. I tell people, I said, "Man, I had my bell rung. That's why."
Literally, you did, yeah.
And then not to belabor the point, but I'm kind of jumping ahead. But I found out later after I'm assessing my wounds. I mean, I was trying to use my left arm to push up because I still had the shotgun in my right hand. I was trying to get up and help McNeil, and I couldn't get up, So it took a lot of effort for me to take my eyes off the danger area. I was just scanning for threats, and it took a force of will to take my eyes off the threat and look at my left side, find out what the hell's going on. Okay, it wasn't until that point, probably a minute after I was shot, that I realized I'd been shot. It took a visual exam. I had to look down and realize, hey, I've been wounded. And that was devastating. I mean, it was psychologically, it's like, holy shit. I mean, it was bad enough, not being able to function, but when you actually acknowledge that you've been shot and you see this piece of meat, on the sidewalk next to you, you go, that can't be my arm. It was so destroyed that I actually put the shotgun down across my chest and took my right hand, and I went over here and I picked it up like this and shook it in front of my eyes like that. And I'm thinking, holy shit, it's attached. That is my arm. Like, it was all puffed up, swollen and purple and stuff. And I'm thinking, crap. I threw it back down on the ground, grabbed the shotgun, and continued to scan for threats.
So let's talk about that for a second. Because like you say, you're equipped with, tell us about what you're equipped with at that time. You've got a shotgun and a revolver, but what about the shotgun? Semi-automatic, pump?
No, it was a Remington 12 gauge, the standard issued, pump shotgun, 5 rounds. Yeah, one in the chamber.
Because that's coming up to my point, right? You've got only one functioning arm at this point, but you've got a pump shotgun.
Right. Yeah, I kind of thought about that, I said, well, I've got at least one good shot. I got one round. Yeah. Yeah, I can make it work if I have to, So, but see, as I'm assessing all this, and I'm looking for threats, I'm assessing what's going on, and I'm thinking, my ears ringing, what the hell's going on, And then I see some movement off to my left, and I'm thinking, what the hell? Because I'm scanning left and right. I'm scanning on top of the cars. I'm scanning underneath the cars. I still had a pretty good situational awareness, even though I knew I was down. And I wasn't about to get up. I wasn't going to try to roll over and get up because bullets are still flying over my head. Shots are still going up. I was thinking, hey, probably the safest spot for me to be in right now is behind the engine block on the ground. So, which is okay. But then I see some movement off to the side of my left side, and I'm thinking, what the hell was that? So I'm scanning to the left, and I don't see anything. I scan left and right, slowly scanning left and right, and then I'm scanning to the right, and then my eyes go to the right along with the muzzle of the shotgun, and then I see something moving on the left again, and I quickly move the shotgun to the left, and I'm thinking, what the hell was that? And I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? I'm thinking to myself, something's going on here. So I paused, and I went, looking straight, ahead. Like my nose is 12 at the 12 o'clock position. I had my shotgun pointing that way, and I didn't move my eyes, didn't move my head, but I moved my eyes to the left, but not my head. And I'm looking to the left, and that's when I saw it. I'm thinking, holy shit, what the hell was that? I saw some red liquid flying through the air past my feet. And I'm thinking, is that what I think it is? And I'm still looking up, I had my eyes screwed up to the left side of my head, and I saw it a second time, and I'm thinking, holy shit, that's blood. I'm thinking, what the hell? I said, I've been shot in the head. And I'm thinking, gee whiz, so I again, I laid the shotgun across my chest, and I'm thinking, this day is getting better and better, man. So I took my right hand, and I kind of put my fingers together into like a spear, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go up to my forehead, and I'm going to feel a big mushy hole up there. So I went up there, and I stuck my fingers in the side of my forehead, and I'm thinking, well, it's all solid bone up here, and I pulled it back. It was blood, and I put my palm on it, and it was blood, and I put my palm on it a second or third time. It was all bloody, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I've been shot in the head. But I said, but my skull's intact. So I said, I don't know what the hell's going on. So I said, hey, my skull's intact, no big deal. And what I had done was, when I put my palm on there, I had moved the flap of skin that was on the temple area. I had pushed the flap of skin over the wound and slowed the arterial, and actually stopped the arterial bleeding. Not stop it. Stopped it from squirting. It was still bleeding, but it slowed down. So I'm thinking, oh shoot, I've been shot in the head, and that's probably why I had the ringing in my ears, because when I was shot through the forearm, I started falling back. I took a second grazing head wound to the left side of the temple. It just grazed my temple area, and it severed the temporal artery, which caused the arterial bleeding, And I'm thinking, this day's just getting better and better, So I'm looking around for a threat, and I'm thinking, this can't get any worse, man. I'm thinking, so slowly my hearing came back, and I could hear popping sounds directly in front of me, and then slowly, as the incident progressed, the popping sounds went from dead center at my 12 o'clock to the right to the 1 o'clock position, and then continued to the right to the 2 o'clock position, and then continued to the right to my 3 o'clock position. I'm thinking, you know what? Everything's on the other side of this car, and I said, I can't see what the hell's on the other side. So that's when I decided to crawl on my back and and maneuver over to the other side of the car. So I used my shoulder blades and my heels to try to like back crawl, not low crawl, but back crawl to the other side of McNeil's vehicle, whose car I was laying next to, So, and it wasn't until I got clear of the tires of the car that I was able to see around to the other side to see what the hell was going on. And that's when I peeked around the side of the car there. I saw Ben Grogan, Jerry Dove, and John Hanlon down behind Ben's car. And I honestly didn't know whether they were alive or dead. They weren't moving, So I'm thinking, crap, So I said, these 3 agents are down, and I saw Gordon in the street. So those 4 agents are down. So I'm the 5th agent, And I didn't know where Manazzi, and I knew where Gil Oranti and Ron were. They were across the street. I'd seen them, So I'm thinking, well, you know what, though? I saw a pair of legs running from the back of Ben Grogan's car to the front. I said, well, that's got to be a bad guy, because that's the only I have accounted for all the agents. So that's got to be a bad guy. And I aimed my shotgun from underneath the car, and one-handed on the ground. And I'm thinking, well, should I fire or not fire? Because I'm aiming at Jerry, Ben, and John's position. And I'm thinking, you know what, though, if I fire and I hit the agents, and I end up killing one of the agents, that would be disaster. I couldn't live with myself if I did that. So I'm thinking, no, don't shoot. So I went through the shoot, don't shoot scenario. So I think the crime scene, verifies that I shot the subject in the feet, even though when I think on it, I don't have any recollection of actually firing that shot. I have a recollection of aiming, but I said, hey, don't shoot, because you're going to hit the agents. But the reality is that I did shoot, so that's they call that traumatic amnesia. You did something that you don't recall, so.
Now are you at the back corner now of whose car?
McNeil's car.
Okay. And now you got to see, I've had the pleasure or the horror, I'm not sure which, of listening to the reenactment of this at Agent Enrichment Night when I was in the DEA Academy. And on Wednesday night, we'd all go have a steak dinner, and then you went and listened to a guest speaker. And I don't recall if you were there. You may have still been in the hospital, because this was in '87. But the Miami-Dade, I think it was a sergeant who was the lead investigator, was there, and it was like a 3-hour presentation.
That was Dave Rivers, yeah.
Yeah. And so now you've got an expended round with a pump shotgun. Did that realization come to you that, you got a chamber around?
Oh, exactly. And the plan kind of evolved. I mean, obviously, as most plans or most survival scenarios, dictate, And the thing is, when I fired the shotgun, I was on the ground on my side. I fired the shotgun, then I had to maneuver my body, because I had to bring the shotgun back, because I wasn't going to crawl like a snake moves it's extended. It moves. I can't crawl like that. I have to bring my arm back up and use my shoulders or my elbows or something. So when I brought the shotgun back, I put it across my chest, and I'm thinking, hey, you know what? I've got it here across my chest, and the butt's kind of over to the side on the ground. So I just went ahead and racked it right there on my chest, racked one round in. So I knew I had a second round in there. Okay. So that's when I grabbed it back by the pistol grip and by the trigger guard there. And I started crawling on my back. So, because I couldn't see past McNeil's car. So I had to get into a position where I still had some cover and be able to peek around the car at the same time. So that's when I maneuvered myself into a sitting position with my back up against the bumper and the trunk of McNeil's car, and that's when I was able to peek around to see what was going on with Ben Grogan's car. And in my mind, it took me like 5 or 10 seconds to do that. Okay, from the time that I don't remember firing until the time I sat up and had my back up against McNeil's car. To me, it was 10 seconds. Okay. But in reality, what happened was the bad guy ran. I shot him in the feet. He kept running, went over, retrieved his buddy somehow, and then came back, got into the FBI car. And when I finally peeked around, I was stunned. I'm thinking, holy cow, how can this be? It's only been 10 seconds. To me, it was like magic. They, 1 second they're running, the next second they're in the car. Okay. But in reality, it was probably more like 20, 30 seconds before I maneuvered, finally maneuvered, because, I started, with the fight or flight, you get auditory exclusion, you get tunnel vision, that all that stuff, that happens. But sometimes something that people may or may not know is you also get time distortion. A second could seem like a minute, or a minute could seem like 5 seconds. So it can work both ways. Okay, and then you also get distance distortion. Okay, if you think you're looking at something that's 10 feet away, it could be 10 yards away, or vice versa. You're looking at something 10 yards away, but you think it's 10 feet. So, there's all kinds of different, physiological and psychological stuff that happens in your mind, So,
right. And were they getting in Dove and Grogan's car?
Yeah, they weren't getting in. By the time I peeked around, they were in the car.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, holy shit, they're in the car, and it became obvious to me by their actions. The driver was looking over the steering column, and the passenger was leaning towards the driver, looking at the steering column. And I'm thinking, hey, they're trying to start the car. They're trying to do something.
And if they got the car based on where it is, it really can't go forward, right? Or can it go? It can only go backwards, right?
It can only go back, and to go back runs over 3 agents. It runs over Ben, Jerry, and John Hanlon. Without saying, hey, you know what? It's not going to happen. I can't let this happen. I said, because I really didn't know whether any of the agents were dead or alive. But I knew that one thing: if they got run over by a car, they'd be dead. So I wasn't going to let that happen. So that's what motivated me to action.
Did you feel, and at that point too, did you feel like, I don't want to say a renewed sense, but did you get an additional rush of adrenaline or anything that propelled you to do that? Because at this point, I mean, you're obviously fighting a very significant injury. You're hamstrung because you don't have the use of your left arm. There's a lot of, like you say, the auditory exclusion, the traumatic amnesia. When you said that feeling, did it crystallize? Did it clear up things for you in your head? Is like, did everything kind of go away and you had this focus now that this is not going to happen?
No, you know what though? That's a good question. And I've never been asked that question, but that's a very, very good question. When I saw them in the car, and it kind of, it was a kind of a jump to a conclusion on my end. But I'm thinking, what else can they be doing in the car? They're trying to escape. And I've gotten into discussions with prosecutors. Well, how did you know that? I said, listen, doofus, what the hell else are they going to get in the car for?
They're not tuning to the Weather Channel.
Yeah, really, they're not tuning into to the oldies but goodies station. Their intent was to escape. So at that point, it became crystal clear to me what they were doing. And again, I assessed the situation. The only way they could escape was to back over 3 agents. And I knew right then that I could not let that happen. And I said, okay, I've got the heavy weapon. Shotgun's a pretty heavy weapon compared to a revolver. So I was thinking, hey, I need to start using this heavy weapon and keep them from moving the car. Okay. So it wasn't necessarily a crystallization of action. I was already pretty motivated. Excuse my French, but I was pretty fucking pissed at this point in time already. So I couldn't. There was no place else to go. I was already at 100%. So because I was angry that they had wounded me, and I was angry that they had wounded all the other agents. Okay. Now, interestingly, I was still running on a high level. Well, maybe not so high, but I was still running on adrenaline. But I could sense myself when I was back there. I could sense myself starting to like, you get an engine that starts sputtering. It's got bad gas or running out of gas or something. I could sense myself kind of starting to sputter because I was like, things are. I hate to say, because you get tunnel vision from stress, like fight or flight. But then at the same time, I was getting something additional. I was actually losing consciousness. Okay, things are starting to get dark around the edges. From like when you pass out, like
Right. You
maybe
get
you've
those
had
like
too much.
orange tunnels, or it's like when they do the
Yeah,
lateral vascular neck restraint, training with you,
yeah,
and you get the blood flow occluded.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have more experience with over drinking. Passing out. No, I'm kidding.
No, you're not. We've all had that
No,
experience.
no, I'm not. No, but you know what I'm saying? When people, faint or people pass out or, that type of stuff, you kind of feel the world like shrinking and it starts getting darker from the edges. Okay. And I started experiencing that, in addition to the tunnel vision. Okay. So I knew that, things were getting a little tight on time, so I'm thinking, it's kind of motivated me to act, So, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, I need to use this shotgun. How the hell am I going to use a shotgun and be accurate with only one hand, And as I brought the shotgun up like this to aim at the subjects, and I had to turn my body in such a fashion that I could aim it. Okay, because I'm sitting with my back to the car. I'm sitting at a total. I'm facing 180 degrees away from the subjects. Okay, totally. So I had to turn to my left 180 degrees to face them. Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to fire this weapon accurately? And I'm thinking, you know what? As I'm looking at it just hit me. Uh, I said, hey, this bumper has a lip on it. It has a little lip on it. It extends away from the car, the car body. I'm thinking that's perfect. I'll just lay the shotgun down on top of this lip. It'll steady the forend, and I can work the trigger and the rear side back here, and it was kind of like magic. I mean, I really didn't plan it that way, but I was planning and not planning. In other words, my brain was going through a cycle of, options. Okay, how do you make this work? What about this? What about that? It was working like literally 100 miles a second. And then when I saw this, I'm thinking, bingo. It as soon as I saw it, I said that'll work. Okay, so I didn't even ponder it, didn't even analyze. As soon as I saw it, I said that's it. I laid the forend of the shotgun on the lip, had my hand on the trigger guard, and I'm working the sights. And then I thought I had a good sight picture, and I fired, boom, and of course, what I recall being my first shot missed. It hit the fender, the left side fender by the driver's door. And a funny thing happened, when I fired the shotgun one-handed, the recoil pushed me back, like most shotguns would do. The recoil pushed me back, and I'm thinking, hey, you know what? I'll just keep going with this. I just let the recoil, and then I halfway through the recoil, I just actually made a physical effort to turn my body back into the sitting position with my back against the bumper. Had the shotgun in my right hand, and I'm thinking, you know what? I let the shotgun slide through my hand, and it hit the ground, and I had my knees up, and my feet my feet were planted on the ground with my knees up for to keep myself steady. So I figured, hey, you know what? Let the shotgun slide through my hand, and then I'll use my thighs to pinch the shotgun, move my hand up to the forend, rack the action, go back down to the trigger guard, turn back to my left, and place the shotgun on the lip of the gun, on the lip of the bumper again, and fire. And it just became so natural, so routine at that point. And it was like I'd been doing it all my life, So, but that just shows you survival instincts, survival. You're always looking for an option, So,
had you ever practiced I was going to say, did you ever practice that in the academy? One-armed reloading with a shotgun? I know they do it with a revolver or pistol sometimes.
You know what? I've been asked that question a 1,000 times, and no, never have, And they said, "Hey, have you ever practiced it on your own?" No. Have you ever seen it in the movie? No. It was just one of those things, It's like,
just happens.
Perseverance. You're looking for options. I mean, don't curl up into a fetal position and say, "Woe is me." You got to look for
Stay in
options.
Fight. Stay in that fight.
Exactly. So then I expended my 5 rounds. And the third shot was dead center. It hit the driver's side window. And I thought, man, this is a great shot, man. I thought, man, 12 pellets hit the driver in the head and neck, and chest. And then I fired 2 rounds at the passenger, So I thought the fight was over, So
let's go back to that, because that's the key part of this. I mean, you fired the shotgun, but it's really, I want people to understand, when you got done with that, that's when you drew your service weapon, your revolver.
Correct.
And let's walk through that part.
But I know there was a I don't know what to call it. I guess there was a come to Jesus talk between the shotgun, going empty, and my drawing the revolver, because I mean, you could almost write a whole book chapter on that. At that point, you mentioned, hey, listen, stay focused. At that point, it became really obvious that I was running out of steam. I was running out of gas, because now not only was it getting dark, around the edges, I was actually losing consciousness. Okay, my head was actually falling down on my chest. My chin would actually hit my chest like this, and I was losing consciousness. And when my chin hit my chest, it would jerk me up, and it would startle me, and I'd shake my head to stay awake. I'm thinking, hey, I can't fall asleep at this point. So I knew 2 things were going on. Number one, I was either passing out or I was dying. One of the two, and I think they were both related. Passing out to die, I think, is what was going to happen. So that scared the heck out of me. I got to be honest with you guys. It scared the shit out of me, really, because I kept falling. I made a conscious effort not to let it happen, but it was happening. I had I had no control over it. I mean, you're looking straight up like this, and then all of a sudden you feel your chin hit your chest, and that's when you startle awake. You go, "Oh my God," So I'm thinking, man, I'm dying. So that's when that's the only time I took my attention off the threat, and I yelled at the agents across the street, Gil Arantia and Ron Reisner. I said, "It's okay, come on over, come on over." And they yelled at me, "No, stay down, stay down." And I think, oh, crap. I said, they don't know the gunfight's over. I said, I'm the only one that knows the gunfight's over. Okay, so so I'm thinking that's when it really hit me. I said, we are going to die. Okay, because I looked north and I looked south, and I saw the police had set up a perimeter. Okay, and there were ambulances and fire engines and cops were left and right. There must have been 30 ambulances and fire engines in the area, and not one of them was coming into the hot zone, because they didn't know the gunfight was over. I'm the only one that knew the gunfight was over. And then the agents, my squad mates, were yelling, "Stay down, stay down." And I knew they didn't know the gunfight was over. So I'm thinking, you know what? And that's when it's kind of personal, but I had a discussion with God. I said, God, kind of like the movie in the part in The Godfather. Hey, hey, Sully, can you get me out of this for old time's sake? No can do, no can do. So I'm actually talking to God. I say, hey, God, is this the way it's going to end? And I'm thinking, you know what? I came to the conclusion that, I was going to die. And it's amazing. At that point in time, I lost all fear, because when you accept death, it's kind of like the 5 stages of death, that you can read about, denial, anger, uh, bargaining, depression, acceptance. I went through those 5 stages except depression, like in the span of like a second. Okay. I mean, I was angry, I denied, I bargained, and it's like, hey, I got to acceptance, and when I got to that stage, it was amazing. I was no longer afraid, no longer fearful. It's like, hey, okay, I'm going to die. But yet at the back of my mind, I still had the survival instinct. I'm thinking, you know what? If I'm going to die, I'm going to take those 2 bastards with me.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure that if I was dead, I wanted to make sure they were dead. Kind of like it's in the Bible. It's a Christian thing, I think, and it's Ecclesiastes 9:12 or something like that. If I'm going to die, I want to make sure they go with me. So, I mean, obviously that's not in the Bible, but
that's what's on your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we've just renamed it to Mireles 9:12. So 4:11. So,
at that point, I came to the conclusion that I was going to die. I was no longer fearful, but at the same time, I wanted to live. So, and while I'm saying all this, in the interim, when was focused away from the threat, a witness across the street, Sidney Martin, saw the driver Platt get out of the car, walked to within 8 feet of my position, and with his left hand fired 3 shots at me from his revolver and missed me. Now, with the auditory exclusion, my ears ringing, I never heard it.
But did you see him though?
No, I didn't see him because I was facing towards the edges across the street. Okay, McNeil, who was in the street paralyzed, heard the shots, and Sidney Martin across the street saw the bank robber get out of the car and do what he said he did. Fired some shots at me. So the guy was still around. The guy was still active. So I decided, hey, the only way we're going to get help is for me to stand up and show everybody that it's safe. It's a safe zone. So I stood up, but I wasn't stupid either. I might have been desperate, but not stupid. So I stood up and I brought my revolver up, in front of me, and I'm assessing. I'm looking at the threat, and then that's when I start moving towards the threat, firing one shot at a time. I'd fire, I'd take 2 steps forward, set my position, fire, and I did that for 6 times, until I got to the car door. And out of the 6 shots that I fired from my revolver, 5 shots hit the subjects. I missed the first shot from the get-go, So, and my last shot was into the driver that hit him in the upper chest and hit him in the spinal cord up around his neck area, and that paralyzed him. At that point,
I hope the son of a bitch died slowly. Sorry, that's my.
Well, I think he did. I think he did die slowly because that hit paralyzed him, and the gunfight was over. That's when all the world came in to assist, because they said, okay, he's standing up, so it must be relatively safe. So they went in, and when the passenger was dead in the car, the driver, when they pulled him out, was still breathing, and they pulled him out, and medics actually tried to work on him, but he expired on the ground, So, and that's pretty much the end of the gunfight, So,
but then what happened to you?
Oh, you know what? After I finished shooting, the Agent Arantia and Rice came up to reinforce me. One on one side, one on the other side. They told me, "Hey Ed, it's over. Put your gun away." Okay, so it's funny. I took my revolver, and I tell people, training. I holstered my revolver, and then I snapped my holster shut. Okay, all that training, and then I took about. I kind of stumbled back about 6 paces, and then I collapsed almost at the spot where I had started behind the car with the shotgun. Okay, and at that point in time, I just ran out of gas. Just boom down. And I thought at that point that I really, was done. I mean, it's like I had already accepted, that I was going to die. So that's when the medics, started showing up. They started attending me and stuff like that. They gave me a shot, and it was like, whoa, that was good.
Dude, that feels, yeah, let's do this again.
So, yeah, I'll take a double.
I'll tell you what, too, if you want some additional goosebumps too, Murph, I pulled up out of the FBI vault the records, but it's the inspector's report on this, and they went back and they did a transcription of the radio traffic that morning. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's like exactly like you said. There it is. When they were talking about, they were looking at it. There was a little bit of joking going around. And then it says, hey, attention, all units. We're behind a black vehicle, two-door Florida license, NTJ 891. We're headed south on South Dixie, or north on South Dixie is what he said. And you just see Steph go from there. They talk about shots, 2 agents down. We need help. Getting the location right this is the heat of battle, right? Steph goes on. It's trying to get the location right was a challenge to get additional help there.
Well, you know what? That's an interesting little sidebar on the location, because the agents, when they were calling for backup, they looked at the sign, and some of the neighborhood yahoos or hoodlums or whatever had damaged the street sign, and they were giving 100. We were at 122nd Street. 122nd, 12201 Southwest 82nd Avenue. Someone had damaged the sign, and the agent, he was reading right straight off the sign. He was giving it as 1201 Southwest 82nd Avenue. So they said, they kept telling me, that can't be. You cannot be at that location. And he said, I'm looking at the sign, I'm looking at the street. And then he goes over, and on the other side of the sign, he goes, oh, sorry. He said, someone changed the sign, someone altered the sign. It's 12201. Okay. That's when he got the right location, but he was actually looking at a street sign that had been damaged, so it's like, what the heck,
So from the time that, we just listened, holy cow, we just listened to you about 25 minutes describing what happened. In reality, from the time you arrived until the 2 bad guys were down, how much time expired, do you think?
Okay, well, let me take a step back real quick, because I always want to make a point of telling people to say, hey, from the time Ben Grogan said, attention all units, until he said felony car stop, that's 3 minutes. 3 minutes expired. And I make a point of, especially like with FBI classes, I say, hey, you can't do anything anymore without having an ops plan. Okay, I think maybe DEA is the same way now. I'm not sure. You got to have an ops plan, you got all kinds of stuff. It's like, I said, guys, I challenge you. I want you to do an ops plan in 3 minutes.
While you're driving.
Yeah. Exactly. I challenge you.
Yeah, you don't know what you're getting into at that point.
Exactly, right? Because, what are you going to do? Are you going to stop the game to run back to an office or pull off to the side and come up with an ops plan? No, you're just gonna operate, and that's what we were faced with, Plus, in the 80s, it was a different era, you guys know that,
I want to ask you about one thing about this inspector.
Wait a minute. I want to get the answer to that question from when you arrived.
From when Ben said felony car stop, and then when we crashed the car, okay, it's estimated, and again, in the spirit of full disclosure, it's estimated that the shooting went on for 5 minutes, okay, and that is close, but I doubt it was a full 5 minutes of shooting. It definitely 4 minutes, okay, and maybe 4.5 minutes, okay, so. But nobody really knows it, because once the shit hit the fan, you don't have a shit meter. You're focused. You're focused on surviving. So.
Absolutely, and the reason I wanted to bring that out is because it took us 25 minutes. It took you 25 minutes to describe it, because you really went into a lot of detail. But that shows you how quickly your brain is processing all this information. You're saying that it's taken me a minute to think of this, but it's actually like split seconds because you're just moving and moving.
Oh
and
no,
moving.
absolutely. And in all fairness, guys, and I've glossed over some parts. I mean, I could have gone another half hour. If you want to get into the real intricate details of everything, but I don't want to bore your audience. So
no, it's not boring.
Yeah,
I think for what we covered, though, I mean, it's just like for us when you're teaching, there's a lot of instructional value, but I think for us, the value in this is for people to understand the types of things we expect out of ordinary people that go into law enforcement that do extraordinary things.
How easy would it have been for you to stay behind your car across the street and not advance to help out your brothers?
Oh, it would have been real easy,
Yeah.
So,
but then you'd have been a coward, and that's not why you took it.
Oh no, exactly. That would have been, But I tell people, say, "Hey, what would you have done different?" I said, "Well, it would have been a couple of things that I would have done different. The first one was not get shot.
Yeah, that's a big.
Yeah, but
I mean, that's
that's
a big.
The bad guys get a vote on some of that stuff.
No kidding. No, but all kidding aside, the first thing I would have done is instead of loading with, we carried 12 pellet double aught Magnum shotgun rounds. I would have switched those out for slugs.
Yeah.
Okay, just gone straight to slugs, and instead of going around to the left to help Gordon McNeil, I would have gone. You had Ben Grogan and Jerry Dubb on the far right-hand side of the scene, and then Gordon McNeil on the far left-hand side of the scene. This is 2020 hindsight, mind you.
Absolutely.
I would have gone right in between both positions, closer to the rear end of the Monte Carlo, okay, from the rear, the left rear side. And with the rifle slugs, I just would have picked them off with headshots. Boom.
But that would have been through tinted windows also, right?
That would have been through some windows, yeah, But again, hindsight's 2020, because at some point in time the tinted windows just disappeared. All the glass in the windows just crashed,
Right.
But I mean that's wishful thinking though. So
before you guys, like when I was in academy in '87, I was there from June to September '87. And not only did we have the agent enrichment night where we got to hear all the full details, we also were watching as they were creating a reenactment there in front of the administration building for the FBI Academy. Now, were you there during all that, or were you still in recuperation?
I was transferred into Quantico in 19. I reported to Quantico in April of 1987. As an instructor, and then they did the reenactment in 1988. Okay, so and I was there for that reenactment, yeah.
And since that, this is going to sound kind of like a stupid question, but if you've been through shootings, how many times have you relived this? Not your speaking events, but I mean, just
No, I know, and that's a good question. That's an excellent question because that falls into PTSD.
Yes, it does.
Okay. And the thing is, I mean, initially after the shooting, I mean, you can't help but relive it.
Right.
Okay, that's called flashback, or flashback, or I think it's called flashback. It's like a movie in your head. You can't stop it. Okay, and that's normal to a point, But if you start continuing that. If you still continue to experience that, then you have some problems, okay? Because it was so annoying, okay? Every waking moment that I wasn't focused on something, if I just like stopped and kind of looked down and not focused on anything, the movie would start in my head. It would just stop, and I could not control it. And eventually, it all goes away. I mean, you talk, I talked to my wife, who's an agent, and then I talked to some of the squad agents, and then talked to we had squad bull sessions, and stuff. So it helped to talk to the squad mates, but at some point in time, if you start continuing to have these reactions, and you need to seek some psychological help, there's normal stuff like loud noises would scare me, startle me. It's kind of like a jerk reaction, lack of sleep. But see, I had a lack of sleep because of my injury. I mean, I had my arm in a sling, and I had to have my arm elevated above my heart for 14 months because my arm was so shattered. I didn't sleep worth a bowl of beans for like a year and a half, because I had to have, I had to sleep on my back because the pole holding up my arm had to be on the left side of the bed. I had to sleep like this. It was just like, it was horrible. So
it was, and I think the answer to that, how many times you relive it, is infinite, because it just, my partner was shot in '89 there in Miami in Hialeah, and it's funny because he and I never. I mean, we've been friends since then, very close friends. And we never discussed the shooting until we had him on this show last year and went through all the details. And back then, they said people would come say, you need to go get counseling, but there was no follow-up. And, I'd already been a cop for 12 years before DEA, and I thought, I'm a tough guy. I don't need counseling.
Yeah. Well, see, it's a culture. It's a culture.
It is.
Yeah, but you know what, though? Sometimes, you kind of know who needs counseling and who's going to be okay, but I mean, but in all sincerity, Gordon McNeil said it best. He said, hey, yeah, you know what, though, we came through this, pretty good. He said, but the question is, how are you going to react the next time it happens? And that's the answer that nobody knows. You think, hey, I'm Joe Shit the Rag Man. I'm going to react like John Wayne. But it's, man, you can never be sure. You can never be sure what's going to happen.
And I mean, we got to say this. Just asking you to come on here and relive this, and I know you're doing it professionally and you're doing it for the right reasons. But I mean, what a real honor for us to have you on the show here and ask you to go back and relive all this horror again, because how many people go through this in life? Not many at all.
And in the FBI, the annals of the FBI, this was one of their worst days ever, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, definitely. But you know what, though, guys, in all honesty, you know what, I'm honored that you asked me to participate with you guys here today. But, I do this, let's be honest. Okay. I don't do this for my benefit. Okay.
Right.
Because it is bringing up, a traumatic incident in my life, but I do this for several good reasons. Number one, this is a story about Ben Grogan and Jerry Dove. Okay. This is their story. Okay. It's not my story. Okay. They're the ones that there was a line in the dirt, from which they did not step back. Okay. They were on the line, and I know for a fact that Ben and Jerry were facing withering gunfire, because the assault rifle laid down suppression fire on their position, and they never stepped back. Okay. And they paid the price. They paid the ultimate price, so that's, and I always want to make sure that people understand that, they're the heroes. I just happened to have showed up that day, but they're the real heroes. Okay. And then secondly, another important point is that we have learned so many lessons, and we have come so far from, the selection of weapons systems, going from revolvers to semi-automatic pistols, going from shotguns to, I don't know about the DEA. We've gone to any agent can purchase his own AR-15, and the FBI started issuing MP5, semi-automatic MP5. I think DEA went to the subguns.
We had Colt create the submachine gun, and now
you know what? I really like those guns better than the MP5s. Really, honestly, man.
I love them.
I wish we could have had those. The MP5, that was just an expensive toy. Really, honest to me,
they are kind of cool, though.
No, they are very cool. No, but the thing is, we've changed weapons. We've changed. We've studied ballistics. We've studied wound ballistics. We've studied,
ammo you use.
Ammo. We've studied tactics, but you know what, though, it's something that you can't really put you can't put a label on it, or you can't identify it so easily. Is what gives people the will to survive? Okay, I can't give you the will to survive. You can't give it to me. That has to come from one person and one person only. It has to come from you. Okay. And all I can do is talk to you and give you examples, and departments can give you training, and they can give you guns, and they can give you ammo, or they can give you cars, but only you, the individual officer or individual citizen, can give yourself the will to survive. You have got to want to survive. You have got to want to fight to save your life, and that's the important part, that's why I do it, especially for law enforcement. I do it, say, hey, lessons learned, there were some good lessons learned, and I'm here to share them with you, so it's about Ben and Jerry, and it's about, helping current and future law enforcement officers, that's why I do it, so.
And to all our law enforcement partners out there that are listening, this is a perfect example of finding out that these two turds were out there firing 5,000 rounds practicing. Now, if you're still in the job, are you out there practicing that much? Are you getting in shape? Are you ready physically and mentally and operationally to encounter a situation like this?
Yeah, because if you're not Murph, like you said, somebody out there is. Somebody out there's training for that day that they encounter you.
Bad guys always train.
Yep, and that's, we I think we as law enforcement professionals, sometimes we discount bad guys training, but I'll tell you what, there's been a lot of documented incidents. People see some stuff going on. Like when I was assigned to the Tucson office, we used to get reports of people practicing in the desert. It's like, who are these people? Well, we don't know. They weren't cops.
You know who else practices? Prisoners. They've got gang intelligence video of prisoners practicing disarming people from handcuffing positions. They're practicing, all of those things, right? So again, if you're not there, hey, Jerry, Ed, let's talk real quick about just your recovery. From that day until the time you went back on duty, how long are you out of action?
Ooh, wow. I was in the hospital for 2 or 3 weeks, and I was home for a year, and I was going batshit crazy. So I begged the office to let me back into the office to do something administratively, something, I was sitting home, just going, berserko, So I became the night duty supervisor from 4 to midnight, just answering phones in the office, which was good. It gave the office a break, wasting an agent's time, so. But I had 5 major surgeries and then 3 minor surgeries to reconstruct my arm. And from the day of the incident until I was fully released back on duty, it was 27 months. I was on limited duty for 27 months, until like God, it was like 87, sometime in the I'm sorry, it was like 88. Sometime in the 88 that I was released back to full duty.
And how are you doing today, long term?
Well, I have a 50% disability to the left arm. My arm obviously will never be the same. It's attached because what though, when I got to the hospital, and my wife got to the hospital about 5 minutes after I did, because she was working on a different case, and they talked to my wife, outside of the emergency room. They said, okay, here's our options. We can amputate his arm now, or we can amputate his arms after the weekend, if you want to wait. It's like, what the heck? So she came back and told me, she said, hey, Ed, they don't think they can save your arm. They said that they want to amputate. And I'm thinking, that's their option? I said, can't they? I mean, isn't there anything they can do? They said, well, they said they can wait through the weekend, because the problem was, that if there was no blood flow to my hand, they said, we can't save your arm. So they said, we can keep it. We can clean out the wound. We can put it in such a manner that it'll be like stretched out, so that it's not collapsed on itself like a snake, like a snake curled up, So they said, hey, we can go through the weekend, and if you have circulation in the hand, then we might be able to do some reconstructive surgery, but we can't guarantee you anything. It all depends. If he has no circulation in the hand, that's a moot point. It's dead meat. Bottom line, it's just a dead piece of meat. So we'll just amputate. Otherwise you'll get gangrene or whatever. So I was so lucky. I still had circulation in the arm, and then they went back and on Monday after the shooting, they did some reconstructive surgery and kind of stabilized the arm. And then, like 3 days later, they went back and they did the full reconstruction. They took my right hip and they did a bone graft on my left arm, and then I've got some rods and pins and needles and stuff, in there. So it was a long road back. It really was, so.
My partner, they took bone grafts off his hip also to reconstruct his right arm. He was right-handed. Afterwards, he said that hurt him more than the getting shot twice in the arm ever did.
You know what? That is funny. I said the same thing to Liz. I said, you know what, Liz? The freaking harvesting of bone from my hip hurt worse than getting shot. And I'm thinking, God almighty.
How could that be?
Exactly. That's what I asked the same question. How is that possible?
Well, let's kind of close up by talking about just a couple of things, though, too, is one of the things that happened is, and I know you're going to demur, you're going to say you're not the hero. I think we get a vote on that, though. Jerry and Ben were, but you were honored for your actions that day, and I believe you were honored with the highest award the FBI has ever issued. Is that right?
Yeah, you know what though? It's kind of embarrassing to talk about this.
You don't have to be embarrassed. You're on the stand. It's a yes or no answer. So, Agent, yes or no? Is that the?
Well, it would have to be a yes, and the thing is, there's some history behind that. The FBI never had an awards program. Probably like most agencies at the time, like I know some police departments have medals and stuff like that for their uniforms and stuff, but we don't wear uniforms, so there were never any medals. But I had the honor of being awarded the very first FBI Medal of Honor ever issued,
Absolutely.
and I was very, very much, honored by that, So
congratulations. It's a shame you had to go through that to get it, but congratulations for being recognized.
But your old hometown didn't forget you either. Your old area down there, they named a criminal justice academy after you as well.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I got a call out of the blue one day in the office, and they said, "Hey, I forget the gentleman's name. Gosh, I'm terrible with names." But he said, "Hey, I'm the city council, blah blah blah." And I said, "Hey, there used to be a Navy base in my hometown that my dad worked at, and that was closed, and the Navy gave the property back to the state. So the state said, 'Hey, you know what? We want to put it to good use.' So they put a correctional facility in the area. So they said they called me to give me an option. They said, 'Hey, we want to name a building after you.' And I said, 'Oh, really?' So they said, 'Hey, you have two choices. We can name the and I'm not familiar with prisons, and like they can name the actual jail itself, the building. What do they call that?
Like the unit or the block.
The unit. Yeah. They could name the unit after me, or they could name the training academy, which was going to be located at that location.
That's a no-brainer.
Easy decision.
And that's what I told them. I said, "That's a no-brainer." I said, "Why would I want a unit named after me?" I said, "Hey, I'll take the training academy." However, in retrospect and hindsight, the unit is humongous. I mean, it looks like the Pentagon just about.
But you're going to get if that had happened, everybody would have said, "Where's that damn Ed Mireles? He's the reason I'm in prison." They even named it after him.
Yeah, exactly. But see, and then the training academy, like most training academies, it's scattered over several buildings. You got the administrative building, you got the classroom buildings, you got that building, so it's kind of like helter skelter scatter, So I said, what the heck, But there's a big sign. A sign is not the right word. It's like a big
plaque.
No, it's bigger than a plaque. It's almost like someone took. It's like huge welded, 10-foot tall, like seal of the criminal justice department. It says Edmundo Mireles, training academy in Beeville, Texas, or something like that. Now that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
Everything's bigger in Texas, right?
Absolutely. So.
But did you get the same year you were shot? You got an award also, didn't you?
Oh, I got a couple, guys. I was selected as a 1986 Police Officer of the Year by the IACP, International Association of Chief of Police.
That's
and then
deal.
I got the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney General Award for Heroism, by Ed Meese, at the time.
I had the honor. I used to, when I got out law enforcement, I was in the private sector, but at a couple different companies, I had the honor to sponsor at the highest level, which allowed us to pick an award to sponsor. And I went from the Community Policing Award with one company to International Police Officer of the Year. And the first guy I got to help be there when it was with Janet Napolitano was DHS Secretary. She was there, but we had him on, Murph. It was episode 8, Mike Neal. He was the Arkansas Fish and Game Warden that got into the shootout with the West Memphis, where the 2 West Memphis police officers were killed by 2 sovereign citizens, a father and son. And that was, you talk about just intense stuff. So, I mean, it's a high honor to be there when real heroes like you come up there, because you know why? 2 things I've noticed. Number one, you never take full credit for what you did, because you're always, I don't know if sometimes people say it's survivor's guilt or they felt bad, why them and not me, but the other 2, the thing I've always heard say is said the real heroes are always the other people. And that's 2 things always in common with guys like you who talk.
Well,
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
So, you know what, Eddie, truly honored. Man, I take my hat off to you. We do want to mention one more time that we've dedicated today's episodes to FBI Special Agents Jerry Dove and Ben Grogan, who made the ultimate sacrifice for the people in our country and the people of South Florida. So God bless you guys, man.
God bless you. Yeah, and again, In to Watch, April 11th, 1986. You can find their stories written up on the Officer Down Memorial page, odmp.org. Some great stuff. But we want to finish up with one thing, because I do have it pulled up here. At FBI Miami Firefight, 5 minutes that changed the Bureau. And you wrote it with your wife. So does that mean she's the smart one?
Well, she's always been the smart one. No, honest to God, if I could tell a real quick story, people used to call the office in 85, say, hey, I want to speak to Agent Mireles. The telephone receptionist would say, which one, the smart one or the other one?
You gotta love it.
I tell you.
Well, it's a great, just read the inscription about it. And actually, let me just read it just real quick, just from the cover. It says, FBI Miami Firefight, 5 minutes that changed the Bureau. If you have the chance to choose between living and dying, which would you choose? On April 11th, 1986, in Miami, Florida, 8 FBI agents and 2 murderous bank robbers engaged in a 5-minute gunfight. There were over 150 shots fired during the incident. In the end, 9 out of the 10 participants were shot. The 2 bank robbers were dead, as well as 2 FBI agents. 5 other agents were wounded, including FBI Special Agent Ed Mireles, who was shot twice. This changed law enforcement training, equipment, and tactics throughout the U.S. The incident is known as the FBI Miami Firefight, and it has been, it's been the subject of, I think, 3 separate things on television. Obviously, lots of training that's gone on. And the other place you can find Ed is Ed Mireles, Mireles, edmireles.com. And you so what's keeping you busy this day? I know you're doing some training, some talking, some speaking.
Well, that's pretty much it. That's what I'm always looking to try to spread the word, But man, I tell you what, like everybody else, COVID just crushed my business. In 2020, 2021, everything was closed down. So I'm trying to kick back up. See if things can start.
So
going
if you're
again,
listening out there, you're listening and you work for a big corporation, or you got somebody who can write a check, edmireles.com.
Yep.
Make sure the check is good. Remember, Ed's been through this before. Make sure the check is good, or cash.
And least you can do is get a copy of his book and read about what he went through.
That will end up on our website. It's to be on our book list page in a place of honor. So, Murph, I got to counting that when we put some of our last books up there. Michael Hearns, some others. We have had. It's weird, but out of the 87 episodes we have, I think we're close to 50 books.
Wow.
Yeah. It's amazing how many phone calls I get from retired police officers saying, hey, can I pick your brain about writing a book? You can. It's going to take me about 15 seconds to give you all the knowledge I know.
Son, that's called fishing in a dry hole.
That's right. But I can point you to the right people.
But we're going to put shout outs up there for you. So guys, go get the book, FBI Miami Firefight, 5 Minutes That Changed the Bureau, edmireles.com. And just follow him and give him a shout out and tell us what you think about this. So this is me. People can't see this, but Special Agent Ed Mireles, this is me saluting you. Thank you for serving our country.
Here,
thank you for doing what you did. And thank you for honoring the memory of both special agents. And we just want to remember them.
Oh, well, thank you guys again so much for the invitation. It's been a pleasure.
All right.
God bless.
God bless. You guys don't go anywhere. Everybody else, stay tuned for the debrief. Like I said, if this does not get your blood pumping, the back give you goosebumps and stuff, you need to seek medical attention right away. 10 people involved, 8 wounded, actually 7 or 6 wounded, 4 dead, 2 FBI agents. Two pieces of shit. We don't even want to give them, their names, but just Steve, I'm at a loss for words. I mean, how this guy walked through the fire.
Yep. You took the
literal
words right
fire
out of my mouth. In fact, I'm glad you said that because I was getting ready to say, I don't even know what to say about this. One of the most heroic acts I've ever heard of. Man shot through his gun hand and is trying to shoot, or shot through his left hand, and he's been shot in the side of the head. And still has the faculties, even though he's losing consciousness, he has the faculties to take out the bad guys, to protect the other people that were there. Just unbelievable stories of heroism. And I know Eddie's told this story other places. You heard that I was at the DEA Academy when they did the reenactment, and we got to hear the lead Miami-Dade investigator come and lay out. He laid out diagrams and everything on the big screen on one night there at the Academy. Just, man, Eddie and the guys with him are the reasons that people like us go into law enforcement. It keeps you motivated. It makes you proud. I was talking to another police officer just a few minutes before we started this recording, who's been wounded. He'll be coming up soon here in a couple more weeks. And I told him, I said, you know what? Just because we retire, it doesn't mean our oaths ever expire. And Eddie is continuing to get the word out there. They changed tactics. They changed weapons. They changed policies and procedures, all because of that one incident. So even though it cost them 2 agents' lives and all those other agents wounded, something positive came out of it.
It probably saved a lot more lives in the future. And again, we want to dedicate this to FBI Special Agents Jerry Dove and Ben Grogan.
Absolutely.
Gave their lives in the line of duty April 11th, 1986.
God bless them and their families.
And dude, we joke around. We said we made no FBI jokes this one because, he still would have been okay with it. But it's like, anytime you talk about the ultimate sacrifice, there is a level of respect and honor you give everybody, regardless of what they look like, how they grew up. It doesn't matter. You wear the badge, you bleed blue.
Yep.
We're
all the brothers and sisters.
Yep. Oh, we've already done the interview. We've already recorded this, and even doing the outro, which is a canned thing. I mean, we've already done the interview. I still get goosebumps from this, and I still get pissed off too. But man, to hear his story, literally just to hear his story, and think about he was knocked down, he got back up, didn't have the use of his left arm. He stayed in the fight. He figured out how to rack the rounds into that shotgun, and when he ran out of that, he went to a service weapon, and he put an end to the fight.
And you won't hear me admit this very often, but because we like to pick on our FBI brothers and sisters, but because of what they went through that day, the FBI revamped a lot of things, and that carries over to other agencies, and including my agency, DEA. At that time, we were just becoming our own agency as far as the training academy, and our guys started picking up the ball and running with it, doing an excellent job. But why would you go reinvent the wheel when you got the guy that, that broke his hand creating the wheel is there to help you? So a lot of the policies and the things that lessons learned that day by the FBI and their evaluation of everything translated over not only to DEA, but other agencies as well. So good job, FBI. Very, very, very brokenhearted for your losses back then.
But proud of you, my man, Ed Mireles. And go head on over to his website, Ed Mireles. That's Mireles, edmireles.com. And then you can also head on over to our book page. We put everything up on our book page, and his book page, basically the Firefight in Miami, 5 Minutes That Changed the Bureau. It's available off of our webpage, his website, and off of Amazon. So you guys go help him out. Go order that book. All right, guys. So we hope you enjoyed that episode just half as much as we did. It is to this day, it has a lasting impact on the safety and security of every police officer out there on the street. So gonna head on over to Apple, Spotify, hit those 5 stars. Let us know what you think. Drop some comments in there. Also head on over to gameofcrimespodcast.com. I put some pictures up from it. Some of them come out of the book, but there's a couple there I didn't put, but you can see they're pretty bloody, showing the 2 bank robbers, aftermath. So it was the diagram of the scene you talked about, Steve. So just head on over there, gameofcrimespodcast.com, see the webpage. You'll see just a few of the pictures. There's a lot more we could have put on there. Also, head on over to social media at Game of Crimes on Twitter, at Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook and the Instagram, but head on over to not PayPal. We talked about that before. Patreon.com/Game of Crimes. Patreon.com/Game of Crimes. One more time, that's patreon.com/Game of Crimes. We have got good stuff on there. We put a lot of effort into this. We put more hours probably into Patreon in terms of just overall recording each month than what we do on our free podcast. And we'd really appreciate if you guys over there, just go over and get us a shot. Start off at the Evil is Coming level, $5 a month. See what you're going to get. The real DEA narcos, that's Javi and Steve talking about Pablo. Then we got Chris and Dave talking about taking down the Cali cartel. Then we've got 911 calls and case of the month, and you can't make this shit up. We got the humorous, we got the serious, and everything in between. Don't we, Murph?
Absolutely. And when you come on and you fall in love with us, then share it with all your friends and bring them on board as well.
Just don't make me file a restraining order, okay? Just...
I'll be posting his address later.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, and again, but we appreciate you guys doing that. Hey, guys, and most importantly, we appreciate you guys being players and listening to us. And we want to thank you guys once again every week for tuning in and playing the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all, the Game of Crimes.